Well, hey, good morning, good afternoon, folks. It's Chris Guerin with Splan, welcoming you to the Beyond the Badge, Mastering Mobile Credentials. We've still got a bunch of people joining, so we'll give it another minute or two before we get started. Hey, good afternoon, folks. Chris Guerin with Splan. We're about 30 seconds away from getting started with today's webinar. We'll give folks another minute or so to join. Please stand by. Well, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today and your time. My name is Chris Guerin. I'm the VP of Sales with Splan. And today we're going to do about a 30-minute webinar on Beyond the Badge and Mastering Mobile Credentials. Very excited. We have a guest speaker with us today, Eric Brinks, the Director of Business Development at Wavelinks. And Eric, I want to thank you for joining us today and being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity. Excited about the conversation.
Absolutely, Eric. Well, folks, this is how it's going to go today. I've introduced Eric, and as well as Bill Holbert, our Chief Sales Engineer with Splan. He's going to be on the call as well to do a demo, but today's going to be a little different. Eric and I are going to have about a 10 or 15-minute conversation and topic on mobile credentialing. Then I'm going to show you a brief demo with a PowerPoint into Splan and how we support it. And then Bill will take you live into the software. At the end, we'll have an open topic for Q&A. Please, if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section and we will address them at the end. So with that, we'll get started. Once again, Eric, man, thank you for your time today. It's been great working with you. And as we continue to move forward in the industry, mobile credentials has become a pretty big topic. So look forward to your expertise in talking to us. So let's just get right into it. Why mobile credentials?
Sure. And again, thanks for having me. I always get excited about talking about mobile credentials. Been involved with selling them in some way, shape, or form for about 9-10 years now, really ever since their inception. So to actually be able to kind of see the full life cycle of what they've been, what they were, and what they are today is really exciting. And when we talk about why mobile credentials, I think one of the most obvious reasons is something that a lot of people tend to overlook, and that's really the role that our phones play in our lives today. We've all had physical badges here for a long time. Anybody who's worked in any professional environment has had a physical badge, generally of some sort.
Right.
And that badge, while it works, it's effective at the door, it means nothing to that individual. There is no ties to no personal ties to that badge. It's just a piece of plastic. Phones today are our identity. You could definitely argue whether or not that's a good thing, but
Right.
it's
Yeah,
reality. It's reality.
absolutely. You know,
So
we talk about that, Eric. We don't pull out of the driveway without our phone. And if we do, we go
yep,
back and get it.
exactly, exactly. Where if you notice even walking out the door, you don't have your badge, you're just going to leave it there. Not a big deal.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
I'd say that's really the biggest driver of mobile today is it just makes the most sense for
Right.
the vast majority of potential customers.
Yeah. Our phones in today's world has become our prized possession, so to speak. We do everything with it, and it is very personal. I agree.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when we talk about that, so there's really been two types of mobile credentials. One has been Bluetooth, and now NFC is really coming to the market. Let's just you and I kind of talk about some of the challenges and not really challenges, but the difference between the two, right?
Sure.
And what you've seen.
Definitely. So, Bluetooth was really the first iteration of mobile credential, and that was basically because that was what was available. The mobile providers, not all of them, had opened up NFC for access control purposes. So, Bluetooth was what we had, and folks were asking for mobile credentials. A lot of times driven from executives or somebody on somebody in an important position talking to the security teams or office managers saying, hey, why can't I use my phone to get in the door? Right. So people have been exploring this for a long time. And Bluetooth, while it still has its use cases, there's been issues with it. Right. I think
Right.
we've
It's been, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's been
no, no, go ahead.
clunky, right?
Right.
We've had poor user experience, and there's been you could probably touch on some of those reasons of why it's been
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah. I think anytime, if we think about back to the physical credential, it's again, we talked about why it's not important to people, but it works. And I think that's an important thing when you're trying to get into a door. Anytime you introduce something that requires training or handholding of an end user to teach them how to use something, you're always going to have a poor rollout.
Right.
And it has historically just led to poor adoption. Definitely under 10%, probably under 5% of adoption still after this many years. And again, that's the biggest reason when you have folks that get stuck outside the door. It doesn't matter if it's their fault or your fault or whoever's fault. They can't get in the door. They're going to be upset, and then all of a sudden there's a problem being introduced that you didn't have before. So the user experience piece of it has been problematic for sure.
Right. Yeah. And that was really, and unfortunately, I'll say it was user understanding and user error, right? Not having location services on, not having their Bluetooth on. And then at the end of the day, as you said, the card didn't work. It didn't matter why, but the credential didn't work. And therefore it was not widely adopted. But now fast forward a few years, now we're at NFC, right? And for those of you that don't know what that is, that's a wallet credential with near field communication is what NFC stands for. So talk about what that looks like now.
Sure. So NFC in general is a more reliable form of communication. It eliminates the problem with Bluetooth was that Bluetooth is meant for a lot of things. It's not really designed to open stuff. To put it frankly,
Correct.
where really NFC is more designed for that close communication. So it eliminates a lot of the user error because it changes what a user has to do. And specifically, when you put that credential, not only is it NFC, but it's in the wallet. Now you have a familiar place for folks where, again, Bluetooth, it required an app. Sometimes the app had to be on, and that app wasn't something that they needed for anything else for the most part.
Right.
Once the credential's in the wallet, the app becomes secondary, or really, you don't necessarily need it after that point at all, unless you're using it for something else. But when it's in the wallet, it sits on top of where you see your cards. So if you have credit cards in the wallet, access control is on that same level and is actually given priority status. That's important for a couple of reasons. Again, the familiarity of paying for things with your device on the wallet lends itself to quicker adoption for this. There isn't as much of a training curve, and there's some comfort and familiarity for the actual for the end users. And then there's also the security piece, which we can dig into a little bit more. But when you're talking, basically trusting the same level as you trust with your credit cards, I think people generally feel a lot more comfort when they see it from that perspective too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's coming from an old guy like me that now has credit cards in his wallet, and he begins to understand that technology and how easy it is, and it's at your fingertips. And we will certainly talk about security. So that's great. So, the question is, and I've probably as an integrator and now with Splan and supporting this, I've been screaming about NFC mobile credentials for some time, but it seems to be a little slow in the market. Why do you think that is, and where do you think it's going?
So I think a lot of that has to do with what's happened historically with Bluetooth. I think a lot of promises were made that weren't necessarily kept in terms of, how great those credentials were going to be. Again, they do work for small biz and stuff like that, but whenever you're talking large scale or enterprise, Bluetooth just falls flat on its face. So I think there's a lot of hesitation in the market today of, is this real? Can we trust this? Because one thing that people, I mentioned kind of the benefit of a card at the door is that it's going to work. It's not a great experience, but that's one thing you don't have to worry about. And one thing that I think sometimes is hard for people to wrap their heads around is whenever you're talking to a potential customer about new technology, you're asking them to potentially put a target on their back a little bit, right? They have to get budget for this. They have to handle the logistics of the rollout and all of that stuff. So it's a big decision. It's not simply, yes, I like this, I want to implement it, let's go. There's 1,000 things that they have to do. And the biggest piece of it is, they get the budget approval, they order product, they get it implemented. The worst case scenario for that person or that team is that it falls flat on its face. And if you have folks that are locked out of spaces and things like that, all of a sudden you're getting calls, not just from those folks that can't get in the door, but from their bosses and from their boss's boss's boss, right? And that's what we've seen in the past. And so, there's kind of getting over that initial hesitation. And then a lot of it is on us, on the manufacturing side, to make sure we're educating the market, every aspect of the channel, to understand how they can adopt. And so that's part of what we're trying to do. I mean, partially with this call today, but in general, that's a big part of our responsibility, is not just getting people excited about it, but really doing the extra legwork to make sure that everybody understands it completely, how to sell it, what are the benefits, and everything else.
Absolutely. And the market will continue to grow. And while it is a change from obviously the folks that push it all the way up from the channel all the way up to the manufacturers, it's growing legs, right? It's got teeth now. NFC has certainly made it much easier. It's much more user friendly, and that kind of leads us into the advantages, right? There are some strong advantages in wallet and the ease in which you now can provision and give someone a credential.
Yep, exactly. And I kind of touched on a couple of them initially to revisit those. There's a familiarity piece. So when we talk to user experience, it's going to be an improved user experience because it's going to work once it's in the wallet every time. There isn't really a point of failure because it's pretty simple at that point. It is literally a credential, very similar to what you see from the physical credential side. So there's that piece of it. And then additionally, from a security point, all of these credentials are stored in the secure element of these devices, or depending on which device is chosen, it could be secure element in the cloud. However, regardless, these credentials are stored in a secure element. So not even the wallet OS providers cannot access these credentials. So internal teams can't do it. And then same with the actual providers of the technology. Obviously, we can't ourselves either.
Right.
Go ahead.
And it's just simplified that whole process. And I think that probably, and while you and I certainly had conversations before this webinar, people still, this implementation, as we kind of get moved to the next step. But the
Mhm.
advantages of the wallet and going from hard cards to the wallet now is, you don't have to go to the HR office. You don't have to get your
Mhm.
picture taken. There's all of these other chain of events that happen with a Prox card that now with a mobile credential, I mean, it can be automated. It can be an immediate issuance or unfortunately an immediate revoke. And there's
Mhm.
not a whole lot of steps involved to make that happen.
Right. I mean, the entire purpose of especially wallet credentials is the full lifecycle management, which you could get with Bluetooth to an extent. However, there are extra steps that being in the wallet, or extra features rather, that being in the wallet provide. Which one of them is, if you lose your, let's say if you lose your physical badge, you don't care. You're probably not notifying anybody until you actually need it. If you lose your phone, the first thing you tend to do, go on to a different device that you own, go to Find My or the equivalent, and mark your phone as lost or stolen. That will immediately revoke that credential from the particular device. So when you think about, well, what if I lose my phone or what if I lose my physical credential? Those are two very different experiences, because you lose your phone, you're not doing anything until that's taken care of. And there's a lot of other stuff on that phone that you're concerned about in addition to your credential. So that part is a huge advantage, because it's that full life cycle management. As you mentioned, the revocation as well, everything is tied to that individual's identity. So they log in with SSO for their organization, they get into the system, they issue the credential, all of that can happen on their first day. It's almost like part of their onboarding package, right? You
Right.
get your access to
Absolutely.
your teams, your office suite and your credential, and it almost fits in naturally in that, versus like you mentioned, they either have to get it shipped to you, physical badge, or you have to go in, wait for somebody to let you in, have that kind of awkward, like, hey, it's my first day, got to get a picture taken up against the wall, all of that stuff. You can kind
Right.
of avoid that whole experience, which is, unless you're a fan of like hazing or a rite of passage sort of environment. I think we would love to see organizations start to be able to have a warmer welcome for folks coming in first day. So,
Right.
it's not
That's
just the experience at the door, it's the experience from the moment that you can access your credential. Right.
right. And that kind of leads into the next thing, right? So we know the advantages, and we've scattered security concerns throughout this conversation, which is great. But it's what is required to implement mobile credentials. And the first thing, obviously, is the reader technology. And that's almost really the only thing, other than choosing a mobile credential provider. Correct?
Right. Right. And the really nice thing is, with the technology available today, the platforms that are available, the number of access control integrations make it so that you don't even have to really consider what access control system or systems are in place, because these technology software platforms operate as basically the source of truth. So, Splan, for example, being responsible for the integrations into not only the access control but also the SSO, and again doing that full identity lifecycle management with the credential, makes it a lot easier. So when you're going in somewhere, say if you want to offer mobile credentials, traditionally what you've had to do is rip and replace everything, right? Maybe even
Right.
have to recable, and that's another, that was another sort of barrier to adoption. But now, as long as you have readers in place that can read these credentials, and then you've got the software platform that can overlay and basically talk to any access control, you're good to go.
And it's that simple. It really is.
Mhm.
So and this kind of to sum it up toward the end of our conversation, we've talked about Bluetooth versus NFC, where the market's heading, the advantages. Now it's still that challenge of adoptability of the solution, right?
Mhm.
And you know, being an older guy and being in the industry forever, it's just that subtle change. It's just a really that subtle change. You change out the reader technology, and now we use something that's very personal to us, which is our phone, for our mobile credential. And so, what's that last piece do we think we need to address?
I think the integrator channel has been widely ignored with wallet in particular, and that's something that we're really looking to change. I think some of the early adopters were software platforms that really worked directly with end users. And so you had some sort of splashy wins on the enterprise side for the initial launches with Wallet. However, we know, having been in the industry for a long time, that the channel is where the relationship with the customer sits, the integrator channel. Without the integrator channel, we cannot access, I would argue, 99% of the potential customer base for Wallet.
Right.
So right now, the challenge is to provide access and education
To the
to
VARs.
the integrator channel, to the VARs, so that there's a comfort level in resale and just that they feel supported. Because again, from our perspective, it's not something that has been done enough, and I think that's what's held adoption back. And it's something that even the Wallet OS providers have recognized, that they, having come from outside the industry, which, by the way, something we didn't mention, that's a huge push in why things are heading this way. These giants of these top 5 largest companies in the world that are getting involved in this, that has a huge impact, and the effort and the money and everything that they're putting into it. But again, that we need more of all of those resources directed to the VAR channel, so that we can actually get much quicker adoption that way.
That's absolutely right. It's the education of our channel partners to understand really the simplicity of the solution. It's not difficult at all. So just to kind of wrap up, and once again, we've splashed a ton of security concerns and how this simplifies it. But just in a quick wrap up, if you had 3 or 4 security concerns that you've heard in the market that unfortunately aren't true, once again, back to the education, what would you look at?
I think a concern that tends to pop up is, just the fact, what if somebody takes my phone, or what if somebody does something with my phone? Again, there are a couple different ways to address that. The first is, people are more concerned about their phone than they are anything else. So that being a big trigger shouldn't be a problem. However, if somebody does steal a phone, again, there's ways to have that revoked in a way that you can't do as efficiently with a physical credential. And then when we talk about Bluetooth versus NFC, I would equate Bluetooth to prox technology. And if that's the least secure version of a physical credential that you can have, super vulnerable, Bluetooth sort of fits in that category, where NFC is more equivalent to the smart card level of security that you see on on cards today, as people are transitioning off of prox. So really, from a mobile perspective, when you're talking NFC wallet, you don't have any communication security concerns like you do with Bluetooth. And then again, to me, it's always going to be better than a card that literally says, Eric Brinks, I work here. Right. And that tells everybody where to go, right?
That's
you
right.
lose that, it's an instruction manual at that point.
Well, Eric, I'm going to have one more question, and then I'm certainly going to pull you back in at the end for question and answers. But I heard that even if your phone is dead, there's a period of time where your credential works. Is that correct?
That is correct. The advantage of having a credential stored on the secure element of the phone, it's a chip on the phone. The advantage there is that chip is what's doing the communication. It's not software-based communication at that point. So even if the phone is dead, there's about a 4-hour window for that period of time where you can actually still use that mobile credential.
Wow, perfect. Well, Eric, I once again, I want you to hang around. We're going to pull you back in at the end with some Q&A, and just want to thank you for your expertise and knowledge on this as we continue to push this to the channel and educate them on the simplicity of wallet. Thank you again.
Again, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, folks, as we move forward, now we're gonna kind of turn mobile credentialing to Splan and how we support it, right? And really the adoption, as Eric and we've discussed, is the adoption. It's right now, it's still a big portion of the industry is it's a nice to have, right? We've got about 15% deployment. but we're moving in the right direction. And obviously with these large companies that support Wallet, it's only going to grow, right? So the benefits, to me, the first one that pops up is the ability of immediate issuance or removal of that credential. I'm going to show you throughout this slide how we make it convenient at Splan, right? How it's trackable. Eric pointed out invaluable security, right? It's the chip, it's the security piece within the credential. Access controls. Here's the power. Doesn't matter what the access control system is. And Splan will talk about how we integrate with 23, 25 different PAC systems currently. The beauty of mobile credentialing is it doesn't matter. So let's talk about Splan's mobile credential support and implementation. And it's across the spectrum of what we do at Splan. Doesn't matter if it's visitors on a temporary pass, employees, right, long-term passes, vendors and contractors that constantly come in and out of your building. You can recertify and activate that credential on a daily, weekly, hourly basis. And then when you have events, so it spreads across our entire platform. It's not just for employees or visitors. And here's the quick automation of how quick this can happen for your visitors and your contractors. And Splan is a visitor management platform. So the visitor checks in at the kiosk. The Splan, we then provision the credential to the credential server. We then provision to the access control. The app is downloaded by the visitor. In an immediate issuance of that credential in step 5, they've now got access doors and an access level for whether it's a day pass, an hourly pass, they now have access into the building. It is that simple and it is that automated, right? Going to kind of where we are today in the market, right? We send an email, we request the mobile credential. Then we have to wait for an approval process. And then admin gets another email determining what access level you get. Then we send details to the employee. Then the admin sends it to the access control team. Then the employee is notified. And then finally, the employee can use the mobile credential. But it's not all really tied together and it's not automated. And the audit trail is very clunky and cumbersome when you do that for your employees. Once again, just like for visitors or contractors, the employee process is the exact same. And it's simplified, it's automated, and it's audible, right? It's trackable. And that's how we manage it. We talked about the immediate issuance or being able to remove or revoke. This happens with terminated employees and lost badges. Splan deactivates it in the mobile credential server immediately, right? Just like with an employee losing a phone. That mobile credential is now immediately terminated within the mobile credential server. So kind of the last piece, right? When we're sending out and we're talking core visitor management, and we want to send out a pre-registration or a walk-in check-in, right? So when we send out the pre-registration to a guest, we can automatically start that mobile credential provisioning process. We can take that check-in, right? And when they check in, we can tell them to download the app so that they can get access to their mobile credential, right? Then we send notifications, right, to the host that the guest is there. We've gone through some workflow approvals so that we know and understand the process from guest to host and making sure that it's approved. We then, in the background, speak to the mobile credential provider, whether it's Wavelinks, HID, Blue Diamond. We're agnostic to the mobile credential provider. We're also agnostic to the access control system. It does not matter to us, right? Certainly doesn't matter to mobile credential. And then the last thing, we have the activation. Granted, once again, automated, quick, simple, and trackable. So with that, I'm going to stop for a moment. As I introduced Bill, I'm going to introduce him again. Bill Holbert, a sales engineer, is going to take over.
Hey, Chris, thank you for that. You need to stop presenting for me real quick, and I'll take over.
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody.
Bill.
Bill Holbert here. I'm one of the sales engineers here at Splan. And today we're going to talk about the process of how we enable mobile credentials, how we activate them, and how do we use them. It's a very quick process. If you've seen Splan before, this is our main global settings screen that we have when we bring it up. And what we do when we enable mobile credentials is over here on the left-hand side, you get a new icon. And the icon says mobile credentials, pretty self-explanatory. Click on that. First thing that happens here is we look at a list of people that have mobile credentials. Now, in the manual world, you'd be doing 3 or 4 different programs to do this. We incorporate all this into a single interface that's incredibly simple. The first thing that we do is we say, I want to request employee mobile credentials. In this case, we're just going to show you the example of employee mobile credentials. The process is identical or very similar to visitors or contractors doing the exact same thing. So we click on the button that says request mobile credentials. At that point, what we do is from there, we click on what location that they want to have the mobile credentials at. So in this case, with Splan, we can do this to any location. So you can limit people to a specific building, a specific lobby, a specific area that you want them to have mobile credentials for. The employee name is pulled from Active Directory. So I can just look up my employees that I have on file. I'm going to pull myself here, bill@splan.com right here. I have my home phone number already in the system and any comments I need to have. If we're going through an approval process, this would go into that approval process, but for this example, we're not going to do that. We're just going to click on save here. Now, just like everything else that we do in Splan, notifications have just been sent out. So here's a notification that just came to me. It is a notification of you're been approved for approval for mobile credentials. From there, what we do is we can look and it tells you, first thing you want to do is go out there and click on Android or iOS to download the software. Once we do that, it gives you an invitation code. And what that ends up doing at this point is providing for you the ability to use your mobile credentials once you log in. Gives you instructions on how to tap. I can tap this, or I can even twist and go. 2 different ways that you can use the products to enable your credentials. How does that look on your phone? So here's my actual phone right here. I have the Sign In Easy app. This is the application that we use to enable this within our phone system or for Splan for visitor management. So the first thing I would do is I would click on the Sign In Easy app. I've already logged on, very simple username and password. And this shows me some people that are coming in today or people I've invited to come in today. But if you look up here at the left-hand side, it shows a phone. If I click on that phone, it tells me that my mobile credentials are active. So as simple as it gets, you enable mobile credentials within Splan, you get an email, you download the email, you log into the system through our phone. And from there, what we end up doing is you then have mobile credentials, and those credentials are active for the rights that you would have on your proximity card or your other type of secure IDs that you currently have. With that, I'm going to pass that back to Chris, showing that, and have him continue on.
Bill, thank you so much. I'm going to steal the screen from you one last time. And as we open it back up, we're going to, Bill, if you'll give me the screen, sir.
I'm doing it right now. There you go. Sorry about that.
Thank you, buddy. We are going to wrap up. I know we've gone over a little bit today, but we do have several important questions, and we're going to manage that right now. So I think, Eric, you and I were talking that one question's already come up. I'm gonna let you jump on that one since you had time.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So Market asked here in the chat about the company policy to have a photo ID displayed, and this is something that we hear all of the time. And really, when I mentioned kind of that instruction manual piece, right, for your visual badge, most companies that we're speaking with that want to go completely to mobile are just printing plastic badges with no tech on them. Not only is that, I think there's 40 cents versus whatever you pay for your physical badges today, but then it also, if people lose it, no big deal, right? It can't do anything after that point. And so that's really the solution that most folks are looking at when looking to transition to mobile, but when they still need that visual verification. Put it on a badge that just has no technology, saves you a ton of money, still keeps you in compliance, and essentially that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. Well, I had a question pop up, and while this was covered, I know it gets lost. We went over a lot. Which access control systems do you support? Well, at Splan, we currently support, I think the number is 25, and that seems to be growing on a monthly basis. But as the map shows, please reach out to your local sales rep. But 25 plus current integrations, and it kind of goes into the next questions. Are there limitations with access control systems? And as Eric pointed out, mobile credentials is really agnostic to the access control system. Can you enable mobile credentials per site? The answer is absolutely. Within Splan, you can dictate where that credential, what location that site works at. And the last question I see, and I'm going to pull Eric back in, it's really how it's priced. And Eric, I know that's a pretty simple one, but we'll wrap up with how it's priced.
Sure. Yeah, it is an annual recurring credential that is based on identity. So if I'm a new employee and I activate my credential, the activation piece is very important because it is only for active credentials. So if you offer it to everybody, only 50% adopt, then you're paying for just those users that use it. But again, it is an annual recurring credential. If you leave, that credential goes away with you. It's not recyclable. However, we are working with the wallet credential providers to move to more of a monthly billing model. So that's something that, obviously as that becomes available, everybody will be notified that is a possibility. But the important thing, it is recurring and it is tied to individual identity. Beautiful.
Beautiful, Eric. Well, thank you for that. And once again, Eric, Bill, I want to thank both of you for your time. Eric, for your expertise and helping not only adopt and push forward this technology, but once again, educating our VARs and our channel network. So sorry we ran over today, folks, but want to thank everyone for their time today. I hope you have a great week, and Thanksgiving next week. Everybody have a safe and wonderful holiday. Thank you again, Eric.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Guys, take care.